Hi, my name is Aram, and on behalf of our architecture firm, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the City of Stirling for allowing us to pitch our proposal for the medium-sized community building. Just to start off with, I'll be brushing up on our design philosophy, our design principles, and some precedent studies that we've looked at, which inspired us to develop our philosophy, and hopefully this will convince you, the viewer, and councillors from the City of Stirling as to why we should be regarded for this medium-sized community building. So just to start off with, Tato Ando, we'll be discussing the main design principles that we believe are essential in achieving minimalist architecture and reviewing some of the works of these architects and how they've achieved and fulfilled these principles. So Tattoo is well known for his use of simple geometric forms to create the architecture and manipulating light to create and evoke emotion through the circulation of the buildings. The first design principle is the form and the construction systems. Just looking at Tarando's work, his love of concrete, his simple use of geometric forms and composition to create the architecture. The social and cultural trends obviously have an effect on the setting out the circulation patterns. It is all about how people perceive architecture and how they would walk around it. So it's an important design principle to consider in the design of architecture or minimalist architecture, I should say. Environmental consideration. This is a very critical point. The architecture must not only just achieve the minimum requirements for environmental consideration, but it must become part of the environment and set itself amongst the environment and go above and beyond in achieving environmental principles. Next, design principles, light quality. We believe that natural light in general is another critical design principle in architecture, and it's an essential thing. I mean, you have to have light uh, in the internal spaces and circulation spaces to once again evoke emotion and just create a sense of well-being. Materials, when you think of minimalist architecture, materials tend to be simple and very pure, natural, and this is what we believe in. We believe, looking at Terrando's work, it's all about concrete and leaving the concrete in its most purest form, even down to the formwork. You look at the formwork and everything else that just remains. It's not concealed. It just brings a sense of honesty and purity to the architecture. And looking at Santa's work again, it's also a very simplistic approach, simplistic forms, and just the elegance, the simplicity, and the elegance of how they portray their architecture. Once again, their forms are quite geometric, simple, plain, just conveying the whole feel and sense of minimalism. Their social and cultural trends, their Sana are all about programmatic orientation of spaces, really ordered approach to laying out their spaces. And we believe this type of approach creates voids in the form, which in turn allow the voids to become the environment and also allow natural light to be introduced. Environmental consideration, once again, the architecture must tread lightly as possible in the environment and almost become transparent to allow the environment to be the focal point. Light quality is highly critical, as we brushed upon, to create a sense of well-being. Materials, again, Sana looks at how the minimal profiles, streamlined profiles, very elegant, very simple, and all that adds to the sense of minimalism. So, having looked at these precedent architects and their works, our philosophy is about architecture. We believe that architecture need not be dressed with ornaments, but be it remains in its most essential form to remain pure, and be more than just an aesthetic piece, but a perfect reflection of the design principles and beliefs. So, just to put it simply, we believe that our design principles should work together in unison to achieve our overall design philosophy. So, form, like we said, if it is meant to be a rectangular box, and it must remain a rectangular box in its most simplistic form as possible. Social and cultural trends are highly regarded. Obviously, you need to look at the client. You need to look at the locality, how the culture perceive the proposed architecture. The architecture must be in responding to that, and not introduce new and strange trends. It must be a part of the existing culture, and obviously responding to the environment. It's something very critical. So architecture must go above and beyond the minimum requirements for environmental consideration, be filled with natural light to create drama and sense of well-being. Materials, natural materials will be highly regarded, even down to looking at the local context and site and trying to introduce materials from in and around the site to not only reduce costs but also introduce that sense of purity and honesty that we brushed upon. So our design process is about, like we said, simple geometric forms, um, taking into consideration social and cultural trends, the environment, natural light, and the materiality from the local site. And once we consider all these, the finished architecture should be a reflection of these design principles. Looking at our artifact, just some massive models to be able to have a sort of a tactile experience with our philosophy. These are simple forms, the green spaces that are in themselves, the circulation spaces, and how the environment can become a part of the architecture, not just surrounding the architecture on the exterior, but be embedded within the core of the layout. And again, how natural light can work within these spaces, and looking at our visual map, just it's a layout of our 5 design principles and how we perceive each one, and our engagement practice, how we tackle our project, from having the client, in this case City of Stirling, engage us down to applying our final design on site and in the construction process, and how seriously we take each of our design principles, and how much we believe in them in order to achieve architecture that is successful and does what it's supposed to do. And we deliver this architecture through our what we call design language, which is how we perceive each design principle, and how we convey it to achieve that minimalist approach. So we hope our presentation um, will, uh, will encourage you to think about a minimalist approach and consider our firm for the design of this medium-sized community building. We thank you for your attention, and thank you.